this day today. I'm thinking I'm going to try and do one every day until I catch up, and I think it's about a week of them. So yeah, a week of book reviews. Anyway, today I am reviewing A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K LeGuin, and I'm not gonna lie, this one was a bit of a disappointment for me. I have not really felt that way about too many books so far this year, which is nice. But yeah, this is a much older book. I'm trying to think of when it was written. Okay, so the copyright on the Kindle book says that it's 1968, but I think this is even like a few years older than that, I'm pretty sure. So this was written in 1963, I think, like the original paperback hard copy book. But yeah, this unfortunately was a bit of a letdown for me. The synopsis says that this is essentially a story of a great wizard sorcerer, and I think maybe because it's a series, it gets into that. However, that is not what happens in the first book, and I have noticed that, I don't know, I feel lately like synopsises, I don't know if that's the right word. I feel like the summaries of books are just inaccurate, whether it's like someone telling you what it is or reading the back of it. And when that happens, I feel like you go in with the wrong expectations, and that doesn't really help the book in most cases. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes you find your new favorite, but in this case that did not happen. So basically I went into this with the wrong idea. This is much more like a fable or like a tale where there's a moral of the story, and that is like the biggest emphasis of all, is that it's very much about Ged the main character, coming into his wizarding power and the lessons learned through that. So there's kind of a lot of platitudes. I think back in like 1963, is that what I said? Back then, these things probably wouldn't have been as overdone as they are. However, I feel like now they are overdone and you've heard it all before. So there's not a lot, in my opinion, to necessarily take away from stuff like that when they're in books like this. And I just feel like now this kind of thing is done even better also. I will say this video, there will be spoilers. Normally I don't do that because I'm normally recommending the book for you. I want you to go out and read it. This one I don't recommend, and if you like what I recommend or you are into the same kind of books as me, this just, I don't think is a good book for you. I'm not gonna lie. So I wouldn't recommend it, and that's why there will be some spoilers. So I'm just giving you a warning that if this is something you are considering reading, I would maybe not watch. I will do the points that are great about it, and I think who would like this first quickly. This is a great writer. She writes really well. This is a series. This is a short book, only 200 pages, I think, ish, and it's on Kindle Unlimited. Also, it is very plot driven, so there's a lot happening. There's a lot of adventure, and like I said, there is a moral of the story. If you're into that kind of thing, I think you'd really like this. Those, I would say, are all the good points. She's a great writer. She's a great author. I think she's a very popular author, writer. And so if you're into that, I think you would really like this. Outside of that, I am going to give like my more spoilerish response to everything now. Hi. For me, because this book was so heavily plot driven, I just felt like 200 pages was 500 pages, and it took me forever to read this. I didn't really want to pick it up, and you're probably wondering like, well, why didn't you just DNF it and move on with your life? There were things that I wanted answers to, and I needed to know how the book would end because of the way she writes is good like that. However, unfortunately, the ending was very anticlimactic for me. I am actually very disappointed by the ending. Definitely made me wish I would have DNF'd it, but obviously hindsight is 2020. And yeah, on the flip side of that, there were other things throughout the book that I really didn't like. So he has like this little pet friend that sits on his shoulder, the main character, and the pet's name is Hoeg, and this says a lot, but I felt like I connected mostly to the pet, which the author kills off. That was very disappointing, and it felt cruel and unnecessary, and there was no redemption, which was why I kept reading. I was hoping there would be like redemption for his little pet. There was not. And honestly, when it happened, I remember looking at my Kindle being like, did it really just die? Did she really just kill it off? Wow, okay. That was a moment when I considered stopping reading. I also considered stopping reading when Ged goes to this island and basically kills a bunch of dragons, baby dragons, and Yeah, that was also disappointing. I like dragons in books. I don't like the idea of like the warrior killing them. So I don't know. I was having a hard time with the killing of like creatures and pets in this book and the dying in that sense. But it tells you a lot that I was connecting more to like the animals than I was to the actual characters. And that is something that is important to me, is to be able to connect to the characters and their story. And I just wasn't in this case. So I think that was why this was the biggest disappointment for me, is I couldn't get into the book, and that was a little bit hard for me reading that those, I can't even feel like I guess Hoeg has a name, but like the dragons don't have names, so they're not even really characters in the book, I guess, but I did not like reading about them dying or him killing them. That was kind of unfortunate. I will say something I think is funny is I was really annoyed by the lack of magic, like almost the same way Ged is annoyed by his lack of magic in the beginning of the book. So maybe I need the lessons in this book more than I think, but it was funny. I related to him pretty much only on that note, and that I was like, yeah, like I was expecting more magic from you, Ged. I was expecting for you to be further along. But that was not the case, and it's just not what I'm used to with books, so that's fine. It just wasn't for me. All this to say is I think you should basically ignore the synopsis if you're going to go into this, because you're going to get a more vague, veiled story that you do have to read all the way to the end to find like the answers you're searching for. And like I said, I did find it boring and anticlimactic, so not my favorite. That's why I'm not really recommending it. The biggest, probably most interesting things that happened, honestly, it just bothered me, felt unnecessary, and then the overall ending was just kind of like, yeah, a cliche platitude that you've heard before. And yeah, he's basically just dealing with his shadow self, and I think he wins out in the end, kind of, but at the same time, it's kind of like, there's so many more books. Where do you go from here? Like, nothing really happened, even though a lot was happening. I feel like that's kind of what happens with like plot driven sometimes, is because I can't connect to them and I don't see a lot of character development. Yeah, like he does develop in the sense that he gets from being someone who wants all the magic all at once and wants to be somewhere that he's not, to being more accepting of that. But at the same time, you don't get to know Ged at all, so you have no idea what's actually going on for him, I felt like, and if there was that personal growth, or if he kind of just was going through the motions and he just had to go through that work because there was no other way to do it, in a way. Like there would be no story if he didn't do that. I don't know, that was just not for me. All in all, the magic was not magicking, the danger was not dangering, and the book was not booking. And if you're like me, I really don't think you will like this, so I'm not recommending it, and I'm sorry. I know this isn't like my typical, like, I recommend this, or these were all the great things about this book. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys that it wasn't my favorite. Ultimately, I think if you like plot driven, or if you already know that you like her as an author, I think you would maybe like this. Yeah, this was not for me, and it was just disappointing. So I am excited, because I think what I'm going to try and do is edit these videos day by day so I can get them up every day for you guys for a week. I have about a week book reviews that I can put out, and the next one I think is going to be Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, because I did read those too. Those are really good. I'm excited to review those. Same thing with the synopsis though. I feel like what everyone says those books are about is not what they're about. So yeah, I am very excited for that. I'm going to try to get as many book reviews out as possible. I like doing these little videos that are specific to the books, giving you like my actual thoughts and experience while reading them. So yeah, let me know if you want more of these, less of them, and if you've read this book and what you thought about it too. And if you have any recommendations for fantasy or things about wizard sorcerers that are actually really, really good, but have like that character driven element in them, not just plot driven. And I hope you guys have a good week, a good day, and talk to you soon.